This is Ray with Haken, and you're watching Behind the Kit.
Hey guys, on September 16th, 2017, I had the opportunity to interview a Hakenite, a real Hakenite, and not just any, Ray. Ooh. So, I think they're pretty swell. Well, let's hear what you guys think, shall we?
I really love Haken because of how well they can tell stories and portray emotion in their music.
They're incredible musicians. Their guitar work is insane. Their drum work is insane. Their hooks are actually hooks and super catchy. Their choruses are fantastic. They're a prog metal band that does everything you want them to do.
They're the freaking best. They're amazing. The instrumentality is out of this world. They rekindled my excitement for music.
Their progressiveness, the techniques they use, the bass and the drum, the way they synchronize, it's great.
The way that they structure their songs.
I feel like they're the perfect mix of old school prog with what's happening now with prog metal, and they have that little bit of gent which gives it the modern touch.
Compositions are very interesting. It takes you somewhere different than most music does these days.
Just with their groove, their style, just the elements of how they play.
And we drove 7 hours from Reno to see this show.
Thanks guys, lots of awesome feedback. I bet the band's gonna love it. Now, without further ado, let's get to that interview I promised.
Hey everybody, welcome to my channel Behind the Kit. Today we're here with Ray from Haken. So first off, thank you so much for doing this for me. So how did Haken come about? Big question. I guess Haken first of all started off with some school friends, Richard, Ross, and our old guitarist called Matt. They found a keyboardist online, a guy called Pete Jones, who is one of my best mates, who I went to school with, and we used to play in bands all the time. They had some other drummer at the time, but they weren't really sort of particularly enthused with him, so he asked if I would be up for coming along to a jam. And yeah, we met up in a horrible rehearsal space in West London. It was really fun. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was very, very clear, distinct memory. And it sort of took off from there, I suppose. We demoed, I think, 2 tracks around that time, a track called Souls and Snow. And then that developed into some more tracks. We got hold of a bass player who was actually a guitarist in a band called Tomera, a guy called Tom McLean. And we asked if he'd be up playing bass with us. A few member changes, but 10 years on after those demos, we're here in Salt Lake City.
So what event brought about the Cockroach King?
The song itself, at least lyrically, is kind of based on Fear and Loathing, which is one of Richard and Ross's favourite films, and we went and checked out. We were on the Strip yesterday. We tried to find some of the spots. We walked into Circus, and Richard's face just lit up as soon as he saw the hotel. The whole song itself is kind of based on those themes of just like greed and sort of debauchery, and yeah. But the music, I guess, it was one of the first songs that we jammed as a band from that album, The Mountain. Again, I remember it very clearly when we started jamming that song in particular. Yeah, we were down in the basement. We'd kind of heard very rough sort of demo ideas of the song, a kind of quasi-reggae verse that we started jamming out, and I remember all our faces lit up as soon as we started playing it together, and it just kind of developed from there, I suppose.
Who are your main drum influences?
When I very first started drumming, 3 or 4 bands in particular spring to mind. Muse, so Dom, Rammstein. I was listening to Mutter loads when I was kind of in my early teens, like 12, 13. These are albums that me and Pete, the guy I mentioned before, the old keyboardist, we were always listening to, sort of Muse, Rammstein, loads of Iron Maiden. So Nico is massive. I love his drumming, and I think he's one of those guys who you don't necessarily see spring up a huge amount in the drum world, but he's just brilliant. I'm constantly banging on to him, you know, about with the guys in Haken, and they don't seem to give a crap. But like he's so brilliant. System of a Down as well. They were the kind of 4 bands that I just was listening to when I very first started drumming. So I was trying to play along to albums like Brave New World, Toxicity, Mutter and Origin of Symmetry, those kind of albums. So they're kind of early influences, and then Pete introduced me to Dream Theater not too long afterwards. He gave me Scenes from a Memory. Pete was basically responsible for introducing me to most of the music that I listened to when I was in my teens. So yeah, Scenes from a Memory, and I was just like, what the hell is this? And then eventually I kind of started to get what it was, and kind of realised who Mike Portnoy was, and obviously he had a massive influence. Early days, all the way sort of through my later teens, I suppose, I just tried to sort of emulate what Mike was doing, and then realised that I'd gone too far. It sounded too much like Mike, and now I'm trying to get away from that. So,
What's your favourite song to play?
I'm not one for favourites, but I guess The Architect's great fun, 1985 is great fun, although 1985 is really, there's some moments in it that are so intense for me to play live that I find myself really short of breath. So it's good and bad for those reasons. Most of our other songs have enough space in them to kind of allow me to sort of keep up with the pace of them. Falling Back to Earth is a really fun one as well. I mean, there's quite a few. I definitely don't have any that I don't enjoy playing, and I try and keep them fresh every night, really. I'm definitely not a sort of note-for-note kind of drummer. I don't like to just reproduce the same thing every night. I just get bored of it. I have to sort of keep myself interested in the music.
What's been one of the most memorable cities you've played so far on this tour?
Let's have a think. Mexico City was pretty incredible. We were supporting Mike with his Shattered Fortress thing, so the rest of the guys were playing with Mike afterwards. We played there for an hour to sort of open for them. I think it looked like we played to maybe about 2,000 people, but I know it was at least 1,500, 1,600 people, which is easily one of the biggest, if not the biggest crowds we played to, and one of the most energetic as well. And they all seemed into it right to the very back of the room, so that was a really fun night. West Hollywood was a pretty good one a couple of days ago. I mean, all the crowds have been brilliant. Toronto was brilliant. I love playing in Toronto. We always get a really good crowd there as well. It's actually difficult to pinpoint every night. It all just meshes into one big mess of just crazy stuff.
What song are you most proud of?
I would say The Endless Knot, because that was one that I kind of initiated. You'll excuse the pun. I wrote a lot of the sort of initial material for that. I went into quite a lot of depth of kind of the arrangement, especially with the drums, to try and make it as much like a dance song as possible. So kind of keep the drums as kind of the sort of groove as regular as possible, not having all these constant time changes, trying to strip down the part in terms of fills. So there's very few fills in there, and if there are any fills, they're quite simple. Every time I play that, every night when we get to that song, I kind of think, oh, this is great, because I suddenly feel like I'm playing in a different way to kind of all the rest of the Haken stuff. And I'm definitely made a conscious effort to give that song that feeling, and I'm definitely sort of looking forward to trying to do a bit more of that sort of stuff with Haken, I think, in the future.
What music do you listen to recently?
I always just resort to telling people about Tigran Hamasyan. He's just the guy I always go back to listening to. He's a crazy pianist. I think he's based in LA. He's originally from Armenia, and he loves Armenian folk, and he kind of fuses Armenian folk tunes, or Armenian sounding folk tunes, with kind of Meshuggah-esque rhythms, in a sort of jazz trio or jazz quintet format, and it's just amazing. It's amazing music.
How did your relationship with Natal come about?
So that kind of came about through a Hungarian drummer called Adam Marko. He drums with a band called Special Providence, who we brought on tour with us last year around Europe. I hadn't come across them until I had sort of really checked out Special Providence and realised that Adam was playing this drum company, and I think he mentioned it to me. He said, you should get in touch with Natal, I'll hook you up with this guy called George Frederick. So I got in touch with George, and it was almost too easy. They just said, yeah, come on up, because they're based just outside of London. They're only based about an hour's drive where I'm from. I went up to their headquarters, which is actually the Marshall Amps headquarters in Milton Keynes. They got out some drum kits for me to try out, and I was like, yeah, this is great. What's the idea behind this? And then they just said, well, we want to give you a kit, basically. And I was like, well, I mean, that's great. How much am I going to have to? And they're like, no, we're just going to give you a kit. I was like, great, I'll have a kit. And yeah, it sort of went from there. So they gave me a kit for the European tour around then, which I've still got.
So we talked about you being heavily influenced by Portnoy.
Mm-hmm.
So how was it when you got asked to play Repentance?
It was cool. I mean, it was it wasn't necessarily like overwhelming or anything. It was kind of nice. I was just like, yeah, it'd be great, to be involved with it in some way. I knew that he was kind of singing the track anyway. I think when they came back off their sort of European run to the first like 10 or so shows they did, Charlie just texted me saying, oh, Mike wants to know if you're up for playing Repentance. And I was like, yeah, sounds good. I'm down with that. It's a bit of a double-edged sword really, because it's quite a straightforward song, especially by their standards. But actually getting up to play it, kind of the pressure's on when straightforward songs are the most difficult to play, because you can't really screw up. If you do, it just sounds stupid.
What's the progress on the next album for Haken?
It's pretty early. I think one or two of us have started sort of drafting some initial ideas, but the rest of the guys are so busy after this with more Shattered Fortress stuff for the rest of the year. I'm very busy with work in London and sort of outside of London. Actually, I kind of have to move out of London for a couple of months for work. That said, I think we're all sort of gagging to just get the ball rolling. So I'm going to continue sort of sketching little things out at home, just seeing if there's anything worth sort of pursuing. It's all just, we haven't got any sort of very clear ideas necessarily at this stage. And even if we did, they'd end up changing.
So how much involvement do you have in the writing process?
As much as I want, really, I think. We generally just sort of contribute ideas and decide amongst us if those ideas are going to work or not, and just kind of vote them in or out. I mean, on Affinity, I had lots of involvement in the writing process, and I would hope for it to continue for the next album. It does make the process a bit longer and a bit more difficult. When you have more people contributing ideas, there's more things to discuss. If it's one person and you kind of just let that one person take the reins, it's generally easier. But I think we're at the stage now where we have let one person, i.e. Richard, do the majority of the writing. We're kind of all really eager to sort of get our own voices in there as well. I think it helps diversify the albums and make sure that we're not just sort of churning out the same thing every time.
So double bass, you heel up or heel toe technique?
Heel up. I do try and do some practice heel down. I know from what I've heard and seen a couple of other sort of prolific names talk about that, practicing one should have a positive impact on the other. So I'm just constantly sort of practicing and trying to push that, especially the double kick stuff. I've never been particularly good at it, to be honest. Most of my warm-up actually is kind of based around singles with my feet simultaneously with my hands.
If you could take lessons from any drummer, dead or alive, who would it be?
John Bonham. I mean, I don't know how good a teacher he'd be, but it would just be good for him to sort of sit down and demonstrate some stuff for me, and I'd be like, fair enough. John Weathers. They had 3 different drummers throughout their career, but John's the guy. I mean, to be honest, they're all the guy, but John is the guy for me. He's just brilliant. He is still alive, but he no longer plays. He had some bad health problems. Gavin Harrison, I guess, would be a great guy because he's just so versatile. He's got it all down. He's got a jazz background, really, which I just admire any drummer who's got a jazz background who starts from that side of things. They're just better. Just better drummers.
What is your favorite thing on your kit?
Probably my big stack. I've got 2 stacks on my kit these days. A little one, which is great as well, but I like the big one. It's just really aggressive. I generally have it kind of medium loose. It's got a bit of a sizzle to it. And yeah, I feel I can use it for quite a few. It doesn't necessarily even have to be the aggressive sections. I can use it on other sections and hopefully it still sounds kind of cool.
So are your sticks custom or?
No. I did kind of have a sort of custom measurement for a while, a year or two ago, but I've just gone back to using 5Bs. Just keeping it simple, really. The guy who makes them is a guy based in Germany. He's got his own sort of custom drum company called Cube Drums. So that's kind of what it says on them, Cube personal drums. But they're kind of, I guess they're quite similar to Vicks in a way. They just don't have that waxy sort of finish. But yeah, I really like them.
What's the worst drum malfunction you've ever had?
So we were playing a festival a couple of years ago in the UK called Techfest, and we're in the middle of the Cockroach King, and I punched through the bass drum head. And as soon as I did it, I was just thinking about, why wasn't there even a Falam Slam, one of those impact pads? Because you could just see it coming. But it was the festival kit, and that was what they had. So anyway, I'm there sort of just playing the song, just carrying on regardless. I mean, it was split, but I could still play, so I decided to play with my left foot instead. And Pete, one of our mates who was sort of teching for us, came up with a big roll of gaffer tape and was just sort of layering on this gaffer tape in between hits, which was a bit of a treacherous job for him to be doing, really. He could have really hurt himself doing that. Okay. Smashed in the hand or the face with my beater. But yeah, and then by the end of the song there was a kind of layer of tape about that thick on the bass drum, and it all worked out. We switched the bass drum over for the next song and it was all good. But yeah, pretty annoying thing to happen.
How has technology changed the way that you either write or perform your drum parts?
In a big way, I think. I program a lot of my drum parts now in quite a lot of detail and demo those parts with what everyone else is sort of writing for their individual instrument when we're writing songs now. And I go into quite a lot of depth. I sort of push myself in directions that I just wouldn't naturally play off the bat if I were just sat in my kit jamming, which has kind of helped me come up with really cool parts that just sound a bit different, I suppose. If I didn't sort of program parts and kind of push myself in a more computer-heavy direction, I just don't think I'd be able to keep churning out sort of original-sounding stuff. I feel like I'm restricted. I'm not a versatile enough or learned enough kit player or musician to sort of come out with the goods every time like that. So kind of having a mixture of jamming it out, but also sort of doing it in a more clinical way, and making sure that that clinical way doesn't actually affect the music, it still supports the music.
So that's it for the interview. Hope you guys liked it. Tune in next time where I interview Dirk from Megadeth. And I'm not joking. He's a nice guy. I don't know if you guys know this, but until about 45 days ago now, I hadn't even heard of Haken. Let me reenact that for you. So here's me. I was just doing my thing, watching the YouTubes. Got some Devin Townsend, got some other bands, got some Marco Miniman playthrough video, whatever it says on the screen, just read it yourself. And then, all of a sudden, I just found this thumbnail on the right-hand side. It's like, boom. Haken. I've never heard that name before. Why the hell haven't I listened to this? Let's check it out. Click. Whoa. Okay, my senses are engaged. I'm letting them carve the way. And ever since then, this is what I look like when I come home from work every day. Honey, I'm home.
Guys got to be respectful to the women. Here's me undressing. Bam, Cockroach King, representing. So there you go. Now every day I come home, I listen to Haken. I always have a hard time choosing because there's too many good songs. Why don't you guys help me out? What song should I listen to?
1985.
1985.
1985.
Good choice. 1985. Devil Horns.